This is my weekly podcast, Later That Same Life. I'm Larry Fedoruk, and each week, thought, opinion, discussion, stories from our lives.
Season 5, Chapter 2.
The Neighbors.
The neighbors. I don't like my neighbors. They're loud, obnoxious, pushy, and generally inconsiderate of others. I can't really move. I'm in a quandary. My neighbors also have a dog that never stops barking. The dog's name is Donald Trump. My neighbors are the United States of America, and there's like 50 of them living next door. Well, some of them are a little closer than others. I've personally hung out with about 14 of them, even some sleepovers. But these days, I'm not sure I'd want to hang out with any of them ever again. I used to think they were cool. Well, many of them. But times have changed. That was then. This is now. I guess that I would prefer to live in an area where my neighbors pretty much kept to themselves. Oh, we'd be cordial, wave at each other across the fence, maybe even once in a while exchange brilliant observations about the weather, while each standing on our own front stoops. Yes, it is cold enough for me. But my neighbors don't keep to themselves. They are the exact opposite of that. They are nosy and they trespass. I don't even like the color of their house. Interestingly, a lot of people had high hopes for this family when they first moved in over 300 years ago. They were a smaller family then, only 13, and their mission was almost noble. Think about it. They moved in during the Age of Enlightenment. A lot of things happened in that age. The big one being an awareness among people that they wanted to govern themselves. No kings, no queens, no dictators, no overlords, no matter how benevolent. No, just us. We're adults. We think we can handle it. So the people would borrow from the ancient Greek concept of democracy and be one free nation under God. Sound good? Well, you see, that should have been a warning sign right there. A free nation under God. Most people then didn't realize, but found out pretty quickly the hard way, that what they meant was it was their God, and only their God. Anyone else's God, along with the associated prophets, were looked upon with suspicion. There is only one God, they would say, but just in case there are others, let it be noted that our God is better than your God. America, in God we trust. What it actually means is we trust only the best God. Second warning sign we should have seen, the colonization. Remember, they even called themselves 13 colonies. The Founding Fathers wrote and spoke of rights and freedoms unless you were an indigenous person living on the land that they wanted. What possible rights and freedoms could these savages have? Not only that, they don't appear to be God-fearing. Third warning sign that these were going to be troublesome neighbors, slavery. My neighbors not only condoned it, but actively participated, traded, and profited in it for well over 100 years. And then an Emancipation Act, but even 150 years after Lincoln, there are still those who long for the good old days. My neighbors built themselves up on land they stole, with people they enslaved, monies they secreted away, and all in the name of God. Their God, the Christian God. You know, the best one? Oh, and guns. Can't forget the guns. There is no America without guns. Canada can be subject to many of the same criticisms. We are not the guilt-free North. But you know, back in the day, we learned from the best. I will say that at least in the years hence, Canada's elected officials have stood up from their seat in government and offered apologies for the sins of the past. At least Canada did have a Truth and Reconciliation Committee. I'm not saying there isn't much more to do, but I feel better about Canada doing this than my neighbors who largely ignore their history, diving into it only when they want to rewrite it, whitewash it. One of the other reasons I don't like my neighbors is that they always seem to be fighting, especially lately. And you can't just call the cops. They are the cops. The more I thought about this, the more I realized that they have always fought. I mean, they agreed to build a country on theft, slavery, and guns, but then have been fighting ever since. It's like they're not really happy unless they're fighting with each other over something. That is not a healthy relationship. Some deep-seated psychological problems there for sure. They had a civil war. Incidentally, it was about slavery. They couldn't seem to agree that slavery was bad. Often when it comes to our egregious deeds of the past, people will say something like, well, it was a long time ago, a different time. We didn't know any better. Yeah, gotta call BS on that. It was horrible, and a lot of people knew it, but still they let it go on. You will hear arguments that the Civil War was not about slavery, that it was about economics and the rights of states. Yeah, the economics of slavery and a state's right to keep it going. They can spin it any way they want. Civil War was about slavery. That was one of their bigger fights. Epic, really. But like I said, they've been fighting ever since they moved in. My neighbors. And I mention that because lately it seems that their fighting is worse than ever. I know, hard to get worse than an out-and-out civil war. And this is amazing. There are people today advocating for another one, like it would be some purge or cleansing of the bad guys. Hey, who are the bad guys? Well, you see, that's part of the problem with my neighbors. They tend to divide themselves into two, and only two: good guys, bad guys, white hats, black hats, red states, blue states, left or right. You're either with us or you're against us. People today like to talk about the increased polarization in our society. And though that may be true, it grew from seeds planted in America decades ago. Johnny Polarization Seed. A country that loves fighting, even amongst themselves, especially amongst themselves. A nation where there's little or no room for compromise. Only right or wrong. As in, I'm right and you're wrong. Man, I don't like my neighbors. There was a poll recently on one of those news channels. An interesting question for Americans. Which party, Democrats or Republicans, do you feel has been more hijacked by the extremists? You see, now I would say it's the right, of course, the Republicans. And actually, survey results agreed with me. But both sides believe that the other guy is too much under the influence of the nut jobs, those on the outer ring. That does not bode well for agreement, or for at least meeting in the middle. I give a little, you give a little, and at least something will get done. That is just not how it works at the neighbor's house. In Canada, at least the nut jobs have their own political parties. If their own group is not left or right enough for them, they can just jump on another bus. In America, there's only two. I guess that makes fighting so much easier. Left or right, blue, red, Republican, Democrat. If you're not on this side or that side, then you're accused of sitting on the fence. I've always disliked that expression because, number one, it implies that there is a fence, a divide, and in this case, good fences don't make good neighbors. Maybe there should not be a fence at all. How about a long row of comfy chairs? And we could just sit there. Every once in a while, we could turn them around and face the other way for a bit, just to see what it's like over there. I said that one of the reasons I don't like my neighbors is that they trespass. They actually trespass all over town, but lately I've noticed them in my backyard. I don't like it. I don't have any no trespassing signs up because I didn't think I needed them. I assumed that as a common courtesy, they would just stay off my property. But here they are, American-style politics, creeping up north. Bizarre, non-focused convoys or occupations, funded with American dollars. Canadians citing their First and Second Amendment rights when those are part of the U.S. Constitution. Confederate flags on Parliament Hill. Canadian politicians wearing MAGA hats. Are you kidding me? Listen, neighbors, if your dog is going to do his business on my lawn, at least have the courtesy to clean it up afterward. Recently, my neighbors have been into time travel. They think they have built a machine that can travel through time. They call it the United States Supreme Court. Interestingly, after having assembled this vehicle, they seem to have no interest at all in traveling into the future, just the past. Did we learn nothing from that time travel documentary hosted by Doc Brown and Marty McFly? Sure, it's always nice to visit the past, but we must get back to the future. Yesterday will always be what it is. It's tomorrow that can be anything we want it to be. Yesterday, well, been there, done that. The Supreme Court of the United States, SCOTUS, may go back 50 years and rescind Roe v. Wade, cancel a woman's right to an abortion. And after that, people fear there's no telling what other human rights they may want to rescind. How far back in time do they want to travel? Well, let's rescind the right to gay marriage. Hey, why do women get to vote? You know what? Let's rethink slavery. Come on, Larry, that's crazy talk. Well, so is rescinding Roe versus Wade. I may sound like I'm fear-mongering, but this time I think the fears are well-founded. It's like Joe Biden said.
What are the next things that are going to be attacked? Because this MAGA crowd is really the most extreme political organization that's existed in American history.
Just like the American Civil War, there are claims that this time it's about the rights of states. Well, the Civil War was about slavery. This one is about abortion. You know, I heard pundits back in 2015 opining that Trump's sole mission was to repeal Roe versus Wade. Well, I don't know about that, but here we are. I want to move into a future, one that doesn't repeat the mistakes of the past. And for all of those advocating for another American Civil War, bulletin, newsflash, it's on. You're already in it. The current U.S. Civil War has a name. Culture wars. Wars, plural, yes, but it's really one big war. Culture. This is where you will find the real venom, the big weapons, the extreme polarization, and the true battles for the mind. All because of culture. And think about it. This is the one area where my beliefs and behavior have the least impact on my neighbor. Let me explain. If my neighbor chooses to live in a gay marriage, what do I care? As my dad would say, it's no skin off my ass. And really, that's a good philosophy, a precedent-setting case we should be citing more often. 1952 District Courts, epidermis versus posterior. You know, if your coworker Dave decides to go through with complete sex reassignment surgery, he's not asking you to cut off your balls. relax. If you're anti-abortion, be so, but leave the rights of others alone. Pro-choice is not asking to have abortions mandatory for you, but you want to make your beliefs mandatory for them. I don't get it. Your Honor, epidermis versus posterior. I rest my case. You know, I pray in this building on a Sunday, you in that building on a Saturday, and her over there, she goes on Fridays. So what? The cultural actions of most people have the least effect on others, and yet they have become the most serious hot-button issues. Seriously? You know, I would think people would be concerned about stopping your neighbor from grabbing an assault rifle and shooting up the school. Oh, sorry, right, guns. That right is protected by your Constitution. That you will fight for. But someone's right to make their own choices, well, you're not sure about that. There are lots and lots of issues facing America that would seem to outweigh rescinding a 50-year-old law. Like, how about being able to afford a bag of groceries or a tank of gas? I know they can't even seem to agree on how to do that. But the issues that really gets the steam coming out of people's ears, they are the cultural ones. My neighbors, and don't get me wrong, I certainly would not want to live next door to Vladimir Putin. But as it is now, I think I live next door to a racist, bigoted, homophobic, misogynistic bunch of gun-toting, Bible-thumping Trumpers. Hey, I guess they're not all racist, bigoted, homophobic, misogynistic, gun-toting, Bible-thumping Trumpians. Just the racist, bigoted, homophobic, misogynistic, gun-toting, Bible-thumping Trumpian ones. At least they're not trying to bomb me out of existence. Not yet. Although culturally, they're trying. Hey, have you ever noticed that when we look at social phenomena or trends, we often ask, has it always been this? Or are we just hearing about it more, because of 24-hour news, the internet, and social media? I tend to think it's a bit of both. Yeah, it always was like this, and now we do hear about it all the time. Humankind has invented a perpetual motion machine. It's called the news cycle. My contention is that America has always been this way. Loud, obnoxious, pushy, inconsiderate, with an annoying barking dog, and guns. They've made minor attempts along the way to change. Americans who tried to make things better with their thoughts, ideas, inventions. But in America, those people usually get swallowed up pretty quickly. Their ideas and inventions just become a way to make more money and become even more obnoxious and annoying. And now with more better, bigger guns. It seems the ugly American will always shine through. Wave the flag and sing that war song before every game. Incidentally, America the Beautiful is a great song and it would make a much better national anthem. But no thanks. We need a war song. Rockets' red glare, bombs bursting in air,
I'm talking about America, sweet America.
And before I go, I know what I'm doing here. I know that I'm painting all Americans with one brush, when in fact I'm sure that there are a lot of wonderful people living next door. I just don't see them. I guess they're living somewhere in the middle. Most Americans in the middle. They themselves trying to understand the extreme left and right, wondering why we all can't at least agree to do better. Meanwhile, I'm stuck living next door to these people. Right now, it's awful. Oh, and you know what else? Their TV is too loud.
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. LarryFedoruk37@gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's podcast YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.